of guys out there.
Special teams should be like referees. We shouldn't really have to think about
Exactly.
them.
Like I said, when we're talking about the long snapper's name, not good. When we're talking about the wing guy that's supposed to be blocking, not good. Look in the mirror, Billy Wynn. You got to play better.
Does anyone have Ryan Pomperion's number? Where do we call him tonight? Anybody? Nobody. All right, what do you got, Eric? What's the next topic?
All right, he hasn't thrown an interception in 156 straight throws, longest streak in the NFL. Brian Hoyer, grade.
All right, we start with the quarterback on this. Tim, Brian Hoyer, grade.
I give him an A-. I thought that, for 3 quarters he was unbelievable. I thought he made some plays at the, in the fourth quarter to win the game. The big long pass to, who was it at the end, the 70-yarder?
Gabriel.
Yeah. I thought that was, he should have stayed on his feet. I thought that was an opportunity to win the game there. Certainly there were a couple throws that he'd like to have back in the fourth quarter. He threw behind guys that could have been catchable. But, I give him an A. I thought he was unbelievable. He took care of the ball and put 3 touchdowns on the board against the Baltimore defense that had only given up 1 all year.
Andre?
I gave him a B, but I could easily went higher. I didn't see anything wrong with this game. I thought how efficient he was early was great. I think for this team, when they play at home, they have to play well early, and they've done that the 2 games they've had here. I like that he's made this. Look, all of us involved with this show and everyone listening and watching right now, we all in the back of our mind thought when it came to bye week, we'd be talking about Johnny Manziel taking over as a starting quarterback. That is something that we will not have to talk about for the next 2 weeks, and that's because Hoyer has played great football.
Kenny Rhoda.
I gave him a B plus, guys. I thought he did very well for the first 3 quarters, but the reason I dropped it from an A or an A- to a B plus in the last 2 drives, you want your quarterback to make a play. And I think it's interesting, guys, in the previous 2 games, they were behind, and they made plays in the third and fourth quarter with Hoyer taking chances because they had to. They were behind, and yesterday they were ahead, and it looked like they got a little conservative with the play calling. So different dynamic there. When you're behind, you're willing to take more chances, and thus they made big plays. Yesterday they were ahead going into the fourth quarter in those final 2 possessions, and Hoyer kind of, I don't want to say played safe, but maybe with the play calling, so B plus.
Again, I'm torn because I don't know how much the ineffectiveness at the end of the game is on the coaching and how much of it is you want to have a quarterback that's got a little bit of magic. Yeah. And I think the magic part of it is the difference between an A and a B. Well, this is clearly Brian Hoyer's team. Number 2, I don't really need to talk about him. And that's, I think, the other thing, too, is that Brian has been able to put earmuffs on, go out there, get the job done, be effective, make this team look like a viable offense when we knew there were no wide receivers going into this thing. They've looked good. You had a running game with 2 rookies. Now, it wasn't that great yesterday, but he has been able to do things that I think far exceed many people's expectations. I give him a B for yesterday, but I lean towards an A- for these first 3 games.
Let me ask both. It's funny when we just did this because I think not having a big-time receiver hurt him in the fourth quarter. Tim, and I'm not putting you down, Tim couldn't remember Gabriel's name. I barely can. Kenny, we go through it. In the fourth quarter, these complimentary guys is when you get hurt when you're behind. You need a big time. If you have Josh Gordon on 3rd and 7, you can tell the entire stadium, we're going to run a skinny post with Josh Gordon. Stop it. They did that with Steve Smith. The Browns don't have anybody to do that, and I think that hurts Brian
I'll
Hoyer.
take it one further. A healthy Jordan Cameron at the end of the game might make a difference, too. Tim, touch on that first.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right on it. I think, you always look to your big-time playmakers in crunch time. And just like Flacco did, you guys mentioned it on the last drive, he goes to Steve Smith down the sideline. And, you guys said, Flacco said, I didn't even know who was covering him. I didn't know it was Joe Hayden or whoever was out there. That's who I was going to because it was crunch time and it was a one-on-one situation. Brian doesn't really have that luxury right now. He's got a bunch of guys that, he's making look pretty good. I think he's putting them in good situations to make plays. But he doesn't have that one guy where he can say, okay, if it's man covered across the board, there's no read to it. I'm picking this guy, and I'm going to throw it to him because I know he's going to win. And he doesn't have that luxury for sure.
Kenny, your view on that?
A.J. Green in Cincinnati, Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, Steve Smith now with the Baltimore Ravens, and until Josh Gordon comes back, nobody for Brian Hoyer to throw to in those situations.
Eric, next topic.
All right, we're up against it. So last one, defense.
Defense. Let's start with Andre. Why don't you go first?
I went with a D. I think it's pathetic that you have all this money and all this coaching tied up in it, and you can't stop the run. I think you have a running back that had never had an NFL snap. You had a fullback that had never played an NFL game, caught his first touchdown pass. I think that the talk for the next 13 days should be, how do we make ourselves a top 15, top 10 defense, and how do we keep the next team under 100 yards rushing?
I went D, and I'll go this way. The offense, I think, is overachieving, and I think Brian's looked good. The defense is clearly underachieving, and the biggest thing that bothers me is something that you brought up before. Mike Pettin is a defensive-minded guy, and we are watching teams week in and week out run right through this defense, and it drives me nuts. Kenny, your thoughts?
You know what? I wasn't as hard on them, guys. They only gave up 23 points to the Ravens. I gave them a B-. Maybe it should be a little lower, but I thought there was some pressure, even though they didn't get the sacks. Kruger did a decent job yesterday, but the run defense, when you're giving up 157-plus yards per game through the first 3 weeks, yes, that is a major concern, and the local kid from Cloverleaf yesterday having an impact on the game. So, Eric, throw a flag on me. This grade should have been lower for me. I was wrong.
Tim.
You know, I kind of lean with Kenny on that one. I give them a C+ just because, you know, they had an opportunity to win the game, and in crunch time, they put the offense in a situation to win the game. You know, Kruger got the pressure. Gibson had the interception, set them up. They missed a field goal. They stopped Baltimore on a 4th and inches play. That Cleveland should have put some points on the board on that one when they had the big play after that, but they had the field goal blocked. I thought that, you know, all you can ask for in this league, especially in this division, is a chance to win the game at the end. Now, I know the run defense was awful. I agree with that. The defensive backs got beat late in the game on some big plays, but, you know, at the end of the day, they gave the Browns offense a chance to win the game, and they couldn't capitalize. They left a lot of points on the field.
Tim, before we let you go, you got 2 weeks before the next game. What has to happen for the Browns to improve and learn on what happened for the first 3 weeks?
Well, the biggest things is run defense. You know, you guys mentioned it. They're going to have to shore that up. And, you know, it's fundamentals to me. It's, you know, getting guys in the right spots and making tackles. You know, I see a lot of missed tackles out there. You know, and I thought that would be really the strength of this defense is run defense and, you know, getting off the field and getting guys in third and long situations, and those then the DBs can take over and make their plays. But it's not happening. And then obviously special teams. There's a lot to shore up there, you know, with protections and, you know, just fielding the ball, just simple things fundamental-wise that this team can work on in the bye week.
Tim, what do you have coming up this week?
I'm at Ole Miss. I've got the Ole Miss-Memphis game, so looking forward to getting to Oxford, one of my favorite places to go on the SEC tour. So looking forward to that trip.
All right, we'll be looking out for you too. Tim, thank you again. We always appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Okay, enjoy it, guys. See you next week.
Buddy.
Kenny, what do you have going on this week?
Well, today I'm doing Drennan Live, filling in for Bruce with Chris Beanie Wells. We're going to be down at Progressive Field as the Indians wind down their season, still in the race. So I'll be doing that. I'll be out at Johnny Malloy's in Medina tonight for the Monday night game doing trivia. And, of course, KennyRota.com. Got my podcast up there. We're going to be doing a blog today called Notes and Quotes from Yesterday's Game on the Browns and Ravens. And, guys, let me say this. I figured the Browns would be either 0-3 or 1-2 after the first 3 games. They're 1-2. The schedule gets a lot easier.
Yep.
I will be shocked if this team at the halfway point, 8 games in, with the schedule that's coming up that I'm looking at over here, I'll be shocked if they're not 4-4 after 8 games.
I hear you.
I'm with you on that. I'm optimistic to that same point, especially looking at the schedule too. Thank you, Kenny. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, guys. See ya.
All right, let's bring in another friend of the show. That would be Chris Fedor, who fills in at 92.3 The Fan, and
Cleveland.com.
Cleveland.com was really where your bread and butter is these days. Chris, your assessment of yesterday's game.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning.
I just, frustration after the Browns had an opportunity to beat Baltimore on their own home field, coming off the win against the New Orleans Saints. And I just, I know Baltimore made a lot of plays down the stretch, and kudos to them. That's what good teams do. That's what great teams do. That's what playoff teams do. But I left that game thinking about the plays the Browns didn't make more so than the plays that the Ravens did make. And I think the Browns gave that one away.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I keep going back to the defense. When you give up the type of rushing yards they give up, Chris, and the penalties, you don't deserve to win the game.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point, Ray. And you're talking about a fourth-round rookie running back, somebody who was getting his number called just because of an injury to Bernard Pierce and ineffectiveness to Justin Forsett, and because Ray Rice, was dealing with the things that he was dealing with. Those kinds of things can't happen, and especially when you're a defense that has invested so much on that side of the ball. You're talking about free agent acquisitions in the last couple of years. Paul Kruger, Carlos Dansby, Dante Whitner, and draft picks as well with Christian Kirksey and Barkevius Mingo, a top 10 pick. And then you talk about Joe Hayden, a top 10 pick. When you've invested so much on that side of the ball, eventually these results have to come more frequently if the Browns want to consider themselves a top 10 defense or a top 5 defense. The Browns had their strength on the field and they didn't get it done. And, yeah, I understand that frustration for sure, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You had your best player, Joe Hayden, on that side of the ball, going up against Baltimore's best player on that side of the ball, and you lost that battle.
Hey, Chris, as bad as I was, and I don't, mad isn't the right word. I think disappointed and frustrated as I was with the defense yesterday. When I walked out of that press box last night, I said, this one's on the coaches. And then when we sat down for the press conference after the game with Mike Pettin, he said, this one's on me. How frustrated were you with the coaching yesterday?
I was frustrated with the coaching too, Andy. I was frustrated with a lot of different things. And I think when you lose a game the way that the Browns lost the game yesterday against Baltimore, it's a number of different things. I don't think you can just focus only on Joe Hayden. I don't think you can just focus only on the running defense. I don't think you can just focus only on Brian Hoyer missing a couple of throws in the fourth quarter. I do think it's a combination of a lot of things, and I do think coaching is involved in there as well, Andy. But defensively, I don't know what they had to do to try and stop the run, but they didn't do anything, it seemed like to me. Offensively, there were some things in the fourth quarter that were just really, really frustrating to me, probably the same that you were frustrated, Andy. And I like the fact that Mike Pettin, as a head coach, took accountability, because that's something that he has preached over and over and over with his players throughout this offseason in the first couple of games. And when you see a coach go up there and say, hey, it's on me, that shows the players that he's willing to be accountable too, just like they have to be.
Chris, I think that it's a great point.
Yeah, it's a great point.
You know why? How many weeks, week in and week out, Andre, have we talked about no one is accountable? No one.
Right.
And Chris, I think you are dead on when you say that we've got a coach that was accountable yesterday.
The other thing, how surprised are you with how the quarterback has played? I've read a lot of your stuff. I know how you felt about Johnny coming in. And I'm not putting you on the spot, Chris. You know that, but I've been surprised by how well Hoyer's played, and I think most of the country has been.
Oh, absolutely. I've been shocked, especially given the fact that in last week's game, if you go back to that one against New Orleans, that game-winning drive, he was without his number one running back. Yeah. He was without his go-to target in the passing game in Jordan Cameron, and he was without the best offensive weapon that the Browns were supposed to have coming into the season in Josh Gordon. He got it done with Terrence West, Isaiah Crowell, Taylor Gabriel, Andrew Hawkins, guys that a lot of people nationally haven't heard of, and Miles Austin, who can't separate at this point, but he's still getting it done because he plucks everything out of the air. So, yeah, Dre, I have been so impressed with Brian Hoyer, and I admit it. I was one of the people that was very, very hard on him. I was talking about his career numbers, and I was talking about his career completion percentage and how I thought Johnny Manziel gave the Browns offense the kind of spark that it needed from the very beginning. I'll go to the front of the line as one of the biggest critics of Brian Hoyer, but he has played well, very well, in the first three games against three very difficult opponents, in my opinion.
All right, Chris, last question for you, and I'm just going to ask you, it just hit me a couple seconds ago. If they have Josh Gordon, are they 3-0?
Oh, don't get me started.
Wow, that's a tough one because they only won 4 games with him last year.
Thank you,
so,
Chris.
You have to take that into account. Yeah, I mean, you have to look at that.
Does he play defense? Does he tackle?
Yeah, he does.
Doesn't matter, man. Maybe you get in the end zone when you're not missing those field goals. It doesn't matter. Look, the defense gave you a chance to win in the end. Look, I gave him a D. You know how I feel about the defense yesterday. But one of the best wide receivers in the game, does that make a difference?
Chris, before we go to you,
by the way, don't think this isn't going to be a topic on everybody's show.
It will be.
Go ahead.
Let me say this. One player, with all the issues, if we were sitting here saying they didn't catch passes, they weren't able to move the football, I could go with it. But for the last hour and a half, we have sat around and talked about special teams, defense, coaching. I mean, we can go down the list.
We haven't talked about pot yet.
Chris, go ahead and wrap up whatever you got to
say. No rules, my man. No rules on this show. All right, Chris, just before we let you go, I heard one of the most interesting subjects ever on the radio this weekend when I was listening to you. What are good alternatives for deodorant if you don't have any deodorant?
You were talking about oils and stuff. What the hell?
Yeah, somebody was telling me that I got to use essential oils, and I have no idea what those are. I just rock the Febreze, guys. I have the Febreze in my car. I'm ready to go. And then you can get those little Axe things.
Yeah, I got them.
Axe bullet things.
Tell them, Chris.
You can carry those everywhere. They're not going to melt in your car like deodorant is. So you just give yourself a couple of spritzes of that, and you're all good to go, guys.
All right, Chris, we got to let you go.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you for your football insight and your hygiene insight, too.
I got some Axe in my car for you next time I see you.
All right, sounds good, guys.
All right, let's go out to Baltimore right now.